You know, when we think about belly fat, most of us are thinking about how we look in the mirror, right? But what if that fat wasn't really a cosmetic issue at all? What if it was a sign of a hidden, active disease that's causing chaos inside your body, even if you look totally healthy on the outside? Okay, let's get into this.
Think about that for a second. It's a pretty wild idea, isn't it? Your scale says you're fine, your clothes still fit, but you could be walking around with a dangerous amount of fat packed around your most vital organs. And this isn't some rare thing. According to some experts, it's actually incredibly common. And this brings us to the work of Dr. Sean O'Mara, who's a real leader on this topic. He came up with this really memorable name for it, TOFI, which stands for thin outside fat inside. And he's seen it in patient after patient. He says even people who look almost emaciated can be carrying huge amounts of this hidden, metabolically active fat. It's crazy.
So let's be super clear here. Dr. O'Mara doesn't see this as just carrying a little extra weight. No, he frames it as an actual disease, one that he says is pretty much unique to humans and the animals we've domesticated. You just don't really see it in healthy animals out in the wild.
And this is the key difference. We are not talking about the fat that's just under your skin, the stuff you can pinch. This is visceral fat. It's way deeper, inside your abdomen, and it's wrapped around your liver, your intestines, all your important organs. You absolutely cannot see it from the outside.
Now here's the real kicker. The problem isn't just the fat taking up space. The problem is that this visceral fat is alive. It's active. It acts like a sick organ, constantly pumping out these inflammatory molecules called cytokines. Think of them like little alarm bells that are constantly going off, putting your whole body in a state of chronic emergency and driving disease everywhere.
And that leads us to this really fascinating idea that our bodies have different kinds of fat. And honestly, they play completely opposite roles. Some of our fat is actually good for us. It's protective. But other types, well, they're actively trying to make us sick. Think of it like this. You've got two teams inside you. On one side, you have the good guy, that superficial fat right under the skin. It's a healthy type of fat that releases a protective molecule. And on the other side, you've got the bad guys, all the inflammatory fats that work together to make you sick. And get this, visceral fat isn't a lone wolf. It's got a whole crew. It's part of a team of 4 really harmful types of fat. You've got fat that gets inside your muscles. That's called myosteatosis. You have fat around your heart, which is epicardial fat. And then there's another deep layer of inflammatory fat under the skin. All 4 of these are pumping out those damaging inflammatory molecules.
Okay, let's talk about that hero molecule for a second, adiponectin. It's the good stuff, released by that healthy, superficial fat layer. And the science on this is really clear. The more adiponectin you have floating around, the lower your risk of chronic disease and the lower your mortality rate. So yeah, you heard that right. You actually want this kind of healthy fat.
It's a totally fair question, right? If this internal fat is one of the main things driving disease, why isn't it the very first thing your doctor checks for? Why are we so hyper-focused on cholesterol panels and blood sugar instead?
Well, according to Dr. O'Mara, the answer is as simple as it is startling. Doctors just aren't taught about it. And he claims this isn't some accident. He says it's basically by design, to keep the medical focus on managing symptoms with drugs instead of actually fixing the root cause of the problem.
Okay, so that's the problem, and it sounds pretty serious. But now let's get to the good stuff, the solution. Dr. O'Mara has laid out a really clear, actionable blueprint for getting rid of this harmful fat and taking back your health.
His whole strategy is built on 5 pillars. It's all about fixing your food, changing the way you move your body, getting your gut health in order, using fasting in a smart way, and even using certain types of healthy stress to your advantage.
Let's start with the biggest one, food. The first and most powerful step is to cut out all processed foods, and especially processed carbs. From what Dr. O'Mara has seen, a diet that's more centered around meat, with wild-caught seafood and fermented foods, seems to get rid of this inflammatory fat the fastest.
And listen to this, because this is a total game changer. Dr. O'Mara says the very first domino to fall, before any of this bad fat even shows up, is a sick gut microbiome. See, a healthy gut tells your body to store fat in that good, protective layer. But a sick gut? It directs fat to become that inflammatory, visceral stuff. That's why those fermented foods are so important.
Now, when it comes to exercise, forget about long, slow cardio. The focus here is on maximum intensity. We're talking about things like sprinting or lifting really heavy weights, stuff that gets you out of breath fast. It's that fight or flight kind of exercise that's most effective.
and you pair that with healthy stresses, also known as hormesis, things like cold plunges and hot saunas to make your body stronger.
Okay, so you can do all these things, but Dr. O'Mara argues that the single most powerful tool for getting you to change isn't a diet plan or a workout routine, it's seeing the problem with your own two eyes. Just take a look at this. This is an MRI scan from a 70-year-old patient. At week 0, you can see all that white stuff. That's visceral fat, and fat inside his muscles. But after just 2 weeks of only cutting out processed foods, look at how much is already gone. It's incredible. And by week 35, the bad fat is gone and you can actually see his abs. This is the proof.
And that fat inside the muscles is so important. Dr. O'Mara thinks this condition, myosteliosis, is the most influential, undiagnosed disease out there. It's why people get frail as they get older. It's why they need a cane, then a walker, then end up in a wheelchair. It's not just getting old, it's a disease of the muscle. And that's really why the MRI is the ultimate tool. Because when you see a picture of this inflammatory disease wrapped around your heart and inside your own muscles, it stops being some abstract idea. It becomes real. It becomes urgent. And that visual proof, that's more powerful than any number on a blood test could ever be.
Now you're probably thinking, an MRI? There's no way I can afford that. But Dr. O'Mara points out that if you just pay with cash, you can often get a targeted scan of your abdomen for about $250 to $300. It's a surprisingly affordable way to get what he calls the single best set of data for optimizing your own health.
Which really just leaves us with one final, very personal question. The scale can lie. The mirror can lie. Those things don't tell the whole story. The real question you have to ask yourself is, what's really going on deep inside your body?